Hi, my name's Bo Cook. I'm a garden designer and a Vectorworks trainer based in Sussex, and welcome to the fourth in my series of misunderstood and underused tools in Vectorworks. Today we are going to look at scaling. So we're going to look at scaling objects, so that might be a PDF or a JPEG or an object that you've drawn. Then we're going to go over and have a look at scaling symbols, and then we're going to just have a look at something you can do with using the plant tool as well. Right, so let's start. So there are times when you are going to import, it could be a sketch that you've done, might not be to scale, it could be an architect's sketch, which again might not be to scale. It could be that you're trying to import a really nice picture of a beautiful gate and you're wanting to do the construction drawing around that for the pillars. Or it might be that you've sketched out a survey, and again you haven't drawn it to scale, but you've got some known measurements on there and you're wanting to then bring that in, scale it up, and then crack on with your design. So to do this, you really need to have a known dimension that you can use to scale from. That might be a scale bar on the drawing, it might be a grid like I've got here. I've got a 20-meter grid drawn on this, or it might be that you've actually measured something on site. So it could be that you've measured a side of a building or a doorway or anything like that. So for this I'm just going to show you, I've got a building here, I know what the dimensions are of that. Then I've imported my survey, and the survey is clearly not to the right scale. So I'm just going to talk you through how I'm going to make that the right scale. I'm not going to just use the reshape because it's not accurate enough. I'm going to use the modify menu, and under there we'll see the scale objects command. So there are some things to think about in here, as there always are. You can scale an object by a factor, so it might be, this is where you could just use it on like edge shape that you've drawn, so you might want to just make it 0.8 of its size, just to shrink it down a little bit. You might want to make it 1.2 just to sort of factor it up a little bit. So that's sort of more of an arbitrary way of scaling something. But in this instance, I want to scale it by fixed distances. So I know that I need this drawing to be accurate. There's a couple of things that you need to know. You need to know what the current distance is of the object that you're trying to scale, and then you need to know what the new distance is going to be, and then Vectorworks will scale it accordingly. If you know what that is, it might be that you have used the line tool, or you might have used the tape measure tool to actually calculate what that distance is, and then you might, because you've done the measurement yourself, you might know what the actual distance is. You can then type those in manually. But the great thing with Vectorworks is it likes to help. So it will give you this option here where if you click on this button, you can measure the current distance. Now I don't know if you noticed it snapped. I have actually just allowed, because it's a PDF and it's a CAD drawing, I can snap to the geometry. It doesn't work if you've got a hand-drawn JPEG or PDF, but it actually won't work in a PDF, but it will in a, sorry, it won't work on a JPEG, but as a PDF, as long as it is an electronically drawn drawing, it will allow you to snap to the geometry. Anyway, that's by the by. So I also, it's just say, for example, I don't know what my new distance is. I can also click onto there, go over to the object that I'm trying to scale it to, and then I'm just going to draw down that long length. So obviously we can do some asymmetry scaling as well, where you're going to skew your object, but we don't want to do that here. One thing to think about as well is, are you going to scale the text, and are you going to scale the entire drawing? Now, if you scale text, it might be that you've got something that has actually written text in, not text that's sitting in a PDF, because that won't work. If you scale the text, you must remember that if you're going to, for example, double the size of something, if you've got a text font 8, it will become text font 16 because it is going to double, in which case then you're going to look like you're shouting. So you might not want to scale your text in all situations. Sometimes you might. I think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Then the other thing that you need to think about is, are you going to scale your entire drawing? Sometimes, yes, you do want to scale your entire drawing because it might be the only thing you've got on there is the survey, in which case it doesn't matter. But if you've got other objects, I in this instance I've drawn this already and I've drawn it correctly, so I don't want to scale that as well, because then I'm going to make that incorrect. So I don't want to scale the entire drawing, I just want to scale the selected object. So I'm going to click OK. You'll see that's jumped. I've completely done that incorrectly because I've measured obviously the wrong sides. Let's do that again. Right, sorry about that. Right, so let's do the current distance again. I did the short side, didn't I? Let's do the current distance, and then I'm going to do the new distance. Oh, live TV, eh? Click OK. There we go. It's now the right size. So I'm just going to drag that over the top just to double check, and there we have now my survey is correct. I'm just going to use the tape measure tool to run a measurement along there. Looks like it's tiny, it's 1 millimeter out for some reason, but that is a way to also work things. So I could actually just very quickly do that current distance. Then I can say, oops, then I can say what my new distance is, which I know what it's meant to be. So current distance is that, and my new distance is meant to be 20. You won't see much of a change there, but it's obviously just been slightly a little bit more accurate. Okay, right, so now I'm going to show you how you can, just move that out of the way, how you can also scale symbols. So we're going to look at 2D symbols and also 2D and 3D symbols. So firstly, if you click on a 2D symbol, just with one click, you can see that you've got some handles. If I now click on that handle, it is asking me, am I sure I want to scale this instance? Yes, I do. Now I'm just going to show you one of the reasons why I do this. So bins, the glamorous world of wheelie bins, come in all different sizes, and I don't really want to bother having loads and loads and loads of different sizes in my resource manager. So I've just got 2 bins, 2 different colours. I should now have a brown bin, which I will make later. But I have the ability, because this hasn't got a 3D object in it, I have the ability to very, very quickly just rescale that. So you can obviously rescale so it skews, and you can just randomly do it. But equally, I can tab in and say that my bin is a 550 length with 450 width. So that's one of the smaller ones. I'll press enter and press enter again, and now I have one of those smaller bins. So very, very simple. So that's the original, and that's the smaller version. Now, it doesn't quite work the same in a 2D, 3D. Now, they both, this I just want you to notice, if you come over to the object info, you do have the scaling option here, which you also have with this. So you can also scale it by a factor. But the good thing about just having a 2D symbol is that you can scale it to fixed dimensions. Now you don't have that option, there are no handles, so you don't have that option with the 2D, 3D symbol. So you can go into the symbol and make the edits and redraw that object so it is the right size, but sometimes you just want to make the edits so it is a factor. You just want to make it a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. So we have these options here for symmetric scaling and asymmetric scaling. So symmetric scaling will make it proportionately bigger and smaller, and asymmetric will allow you to make it maybe wider and narrower, or wider, or yes, or taller or shorter. Sorry, yes. So let's just have a little look at this. So let's go for symmetric first. So I'm going to click on this chair. You can see I've already made it a factor of 0.75. So if I change it to a factor of 1.2, I'm now going to make it bigger, but it's proportionately bigger. That's the original one there. So that's at 0.75, that's at 1.2, that is the original. Also, you might want to make a very large table like this. You might want to make it smaller. You might want to make it smaller symmetrically, but also you actually might want to make it smaller asymmetrically. So I might want to keep the height of that table, but I just want to make it a little bit narrower. So I'm going to change the X value to 0.75, but keep the Y value the same. So there you go. I've just made it a little bit narrower. Might make it a bit narrower still. Just give that a go to 0.6. There we go. So at that point, like I said, I've kept the height, but I've just made the width of it a little bit smaller so it fits more comfortably with that sofa. Also, we can make the sofas smaller as well. So in this example here, you can see that was my original. I've just duplicated it, but I've made it look like a completely different sofa just by making it a little bit narrower. So I've changed it from a 3-seater down to a 2-seater. Okay, so always remember that if you're wanting to change a symbol permanently and you go inside that symbol and make it bigger or smaller, it will also affect all other symbol instances on your drawing. So this is why sometimes you want to do just this factor scaling, because then you can just play around with it, make something a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but you haven't then affected all of the other objects on your drawing. The final thing I want to show you is this this idea of just, it's a little bit it's not a science, this one. It's just it's a variation. It's a percentage variation. But what we can do with the plant tool is make our plants look a little bit more naturalistic. So at the moment, this tree is on the drawing and it is at 3.5 spread. All three are the same. I would keep it like this if I was doing a planting plan. I would keep it like this if I was doing an avenue of trees, for example. But if I'm just doing some nice random naturalistic looking planting, I might change what's called the diameter variation in the plant, in the object info for the plant tool. So if you again select the plant, zoom down to diameter variation, and here you can see it says fixed. So you can change that to random at 5%, so it makes a little adjust. You can also do random at 10%. It's going to make the difference between the smallest and the biggest a little bit more variable. And then you've got random at 15. So that one there is, I think for this drawing, is what I'm happy with. So it just makes that little sort of cluster of trees look a little bit more natural. Okay, so I hope that is useful. So I've just shown you how to use scaling in the modify menu. Then we've looked at scaling 2D symbols and 2D 3D symbols, and then just having a look at the variation that you can put on plants in the plant tool. If you have any tutorials that you would like me to do and you want to see how I use them in practice as a garden designer, I'm more than happy to help. So just pop your request underneath on this YouTube channel, and keep your eyes out tomorrow for my next one. I wonder what it will be. Thank you. Bye.